episode 38 of Prog Review, and this time I'm going to be turning my attention to Marillion's Clutching at Straws, because this has been requested via the viewership and the amazing Prog Review suggestions list. Now, what to say? This is the last album for Fish. He kind of followed in the footsteps of his own hero Peter Gabriel, and this was his swan song. Now, I'm not going to lie, this is probably my favourite of the Fish era Marillion albums. Concentrate on the story of a character called Torch. He's the archetypal loser who blames the world for his problems and drowns his sorrows in a vat of booze, and he writes self-pitying songs about how miserable his life is. He is the self-crowned prince of poetry of the pathetic. I'm not sure why the album actually works, because the main character of Torch comes across as wholly unsympathetic and self-obsessed, but I guess that's the nature of the poet alcoholic, there you go. But listening to it again, it took me back in time to a time long gone. This is an album for men. It's written by a man for men, and this is how men express their feelings. This is, of course, in the days before men became, the sensitive creatures that we are now. This is before the time when men used moisturiser, and before we pretended to actually be interested in what our females had to say. Indeed. So, we start at the beginning with Hotel Hobbies, and we instantly begin our descent into booze and drug-fueled excesses of the protagonist, and it almost mirrors what the band were going through themselves, being gripped by cocaine paranoia and the alcoholic frost that rock and roll benders can bring. In fact, the first few songs can be considered as a suite, because they all merge into each other and they're quite delicious in their completeness. And if they were recorded now, I think the band would be braver and probably make them one big song. The next track, Warm Wet Circles, alludes to the comfort a woman can bring, and its imagery is hammered home time and time again with Fish at his fifth form lyrics. And despite its corniness, he really does paint a good story. And this is why we love Uncle Fish, because he's not really a singer, is he? No, he's not. He's a storyteller. And if you've been in that kind of situation, we all understand that time of the night. It's that moment when the world sleeps and you're awake, gripped, in my case, by insomnia, and that pain in the chest, the buzzing in the head as you try to rest, and you feel like you're the only person alive in the world. And for me, somebody who sometimes has trouble sleeping, this song holds a hidden meaning. And we all feel cheated, and we all wonder why, things have happened to us, and what's really going on. Is there something beneath the surface? The questions of life rattle in an open mind, and then, of course, we are given the short straw. I really love that song. It's very strong, both musically and lyrically, and I think with this album, Fish is lyrically at his strongest. He's never surpassed it before or after this album, and the same with the music. The band, kind of distilled what they were, and it's kind of a very concentrated soup. Again, this is a very male album. and it kind of explores the vulnerabilities of, you know, the male psyche and why we are more likely to bury our problems or piss them up the wall after a night of unbridled excess. Now that's sweet. Those first three songs are followed by a track called Going Under. I'm not sure if it actually appeared on the LP, but it's on the CD version. I mean, I think that's probably the version that we all know. And after the blazing 14 minutes that have preceded it, it feels a bit undercooked and, you know, more of an afterthought, you know, a bit of a filler. I know it was a B-side to one of the singles. And meanwhile, Just for the Record it's a jaunty little number. It's quite jolly in comparison to what's gone before, and musically it sounds like the band's riffing on part of this Espresso Bongo, which was from the Misplaced Childhood album, and it's kind of typical song about those people who, you know, want to wipe the slate clean and start again, but never, for whatever reason, in this case alcohol, never get around to setting the clock back to zero. And despite its dark subject matter, it's quite a neat little pop song at its heart. You know, if you listen to it, it's, you know, it's got that pop sensibility that I've talked about before when discussing Marillion. And in places, Fish sounds as if he's channeling the vocal phrasing of Sting from The Police. You know, and I think, you know, special commendation must go to the keyboard work of Mark Kelly, who steers the pop ship back into the rocks of prog with his widdly synths. Very widdly. In fact, he's very widdly on this album. And then this is followed by a track called White Russian, and it's probably the most political song the band ever did. You know, even Forgotten Sons was probably the last political song, but this is, you know, it manages to somehow fuse the Nazi Holocaust to the Russian Revolution and the rise of, you know, the Soviet bloc. And it's funny, if you really listen to the lyrics and, you know, listen to what's going on, there are quite a few ideas sloshing around in there. It's very dense, and you may have overlooked the depth of meaning and instead been wondering, I wonder what a White Russian actually tastes like. Then, if it was an album, I guess you would flip it over, but it's not. We talk about the CD. Comes the hit. And the hit in this case, After All the Darkness, comes Incommunicado. And like a lot of the music on this album, a lot of the songs on the album, it's about being pissed. I hope you're noticing that there is a theme progressing here. Of course, the hero, Torch, he wants to be famous, he wants to be a rock star and have all the trappings that come with that, but he doesn't want any of the responsibility. Instead, he wants to be incommunicado, and in some circles that's a euphemism for being, you know, 9 sheets to the wind, you know, being merry, being drunk. English language is wonderful. We can paint pictures like that. The opening section is quite a joy. I like it because it really is kind of proggy, and it always manages to make the hairs on the back of my neck stick up, and again taking me back in time. I always have quite fond memories of seeing the band doing this on Top of the Pops, a British TV programme which was highly regarded, and they were at the height of their powers. It looked like Marillion were unstoppable. You know, they could do anything, little did we know. And I'm sure you've already checked out that performance on YouTube. Again, this is a pretty solid pop song. It's got guitars and widdly synths though that remind you that, hey, we're not that pop, we are prog, possibly rock. And then after that slab of fun, we return to put my teeth back in. We return to Tea and Sympathy as Fish returns to his character of Torch back to self-pity and more romancing of the chronic alcoholic in Torch Song. Now, this is where I have an issue, because in this song, the mythologising of those with drink problems is just, you know, I just find it I don't like it. It's the same with those people, those idiots who used to buy, George Best to drink when he was on his last legs. Alcoholism, isn't glamorous, it's not romantic, it's not funny. Yeah, oh yeah, let's be the drunk poet in the corner. But, if this song had been about drinking buckfast on a park bench and pissing your trousers because you've lost control of your bladder and giving a toothless grin because you've knocked your own teeth out after having an alcoholic-induced fit, then, I'd appreciate the song more. But, Fish is stuck in this romanticised notion that, hey, I'm a drunk poet, Yeah, that layer of self-pity doesn't quite wash with me, unfortunately. And being an alcoholic isn't fun. The same way as being a junkie isn't fun. Let's not go there. I suppose Slange Mavar is the yin to Torch Song's yang, and it's the true cost of the broken souls propping up the bar. Each one of them, with a sad story to tell and a million reasons why they're looking through the world through the bottom of a whiskey glass. It's almost a song to the working classes who have been betrayed by the upper classes, who send us off over the trench tops straight into the firing line. So in a way, even though I find Torch Song, Fish makes up with it with Slange Mavar. So there you go. Now, with regards to Sugar Mice, it's one of those songs that always leaves me utterly divided, cut down the middle. On one hand, it is an utterly saccharine piece of work, but then on the other hand, the music takes off and the guitar solo from Steve Rothery transports me away, and I can forgive the fake sentiment of it all. But I think I'll take a rain check on this song. And then the last straw wraps up the whole journey and ends the concept album on a bit of a bum note. And for me, it's an unsatisfactory, and not that I want a gloriously happy ending, it's a realistic ending. But I don't know, for me, I think it's one of those songs that doesn't work on an album. It works better live, when you've got a crowd, singing along and waving their lighters held aloft, for an album song, and for the final song of the album, it just feels a little bit muted. And then you have the echoing laughter of happy ending ? And then it's all over. I mean, as an album, I quite like it. I quite like the story, though. I don't think you go on the journey holding Torch's hand. You're not a sympathetic bystander. You're a bystander who's just watching, someone fall apart. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I like to be able to empathise with the character, and if somebody just blames all their troubles on everyone else and then blames themselves once they've had a few bevies, I don't know. I have a bit of trouble identifying with that macho man. However, if you pick up the expanded double CD of the record that was released in 1999, I believe, you'll find there is a host of demo tracks hitherto unheard. And what makes this interesting is that the songs here are the ones that Fish worked on with the band before he went and scarpered. So he went off and took the lyrics with him, and they appear on Vigil in the Wilderness of Mirrors and on Internal Exile. And the band end up using some of the music on Season's End, and I think one of the B-sides, Bell in the Sea, comes from that. But I'm not going to spoil it all for you. If you've not heard it, check out the demo tracks. They're really quite interesting. A nice little artifact for the Marillion fan. Now, we've come to the end. I've already burnt up me 12 minutes and had to restart the camera, so I need to come up with a rating. Now, you know, it's a strong album. I think it's, you know, it's quite a, you know, it's not a perfect album. It's not, you know, not every song is perfect, but I just like it. I like it a lot better than Misplaced Childhood, because that was just, for me, was played to death. And, you know, Fish does away with some of the airy fairy imagery that we got, you know, with magpies and bleeding jesters. So I like the fact that this is a more down to earth record lyrically. But anyway, I'm wandering off topic. I'm going to give Clutching at Straws a strong 4 sugar mice out of 5. That's a strong 4 sugar mice out of 5. So there you have it. We've wrapped it all up for another prog review. I'm going to be working my way through the list and maybe adding a few choices of my own in the coming weeks and months, if you bear to stick with me. My name's been Darren Locke. I've been whittering on endlessly about Clutching at Straws by Marillion, and you have been very, 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 very patient. You know, it's time to prog on.